everyone, and welcome back to science class. Today, I would like to talk to you about fossil fuels, mining, and how they affect the environment. Let's get started, shall we? Let's answer the question, what are fossil fuels? Fossil fuels are actually ancient, dead plants and animals that have been decomposing underground for millions and millions of years. They are carbon-based substances, and they come in three main categories: oil, coal, and natural gas. Now, ever since humans discovered these resources, we've been using them to power our engines, our cars, our planes, our homes, our cities. Basically, we've been using it for a lot of things regarding electricity and power in general. We have also been using oil to make something that everyone is very familiar with, and that is plastic. You can find plastic in everything from computers to cookware to car parts to even your clothing can be made out of plastic. Now, in order for us to be able to use fossil fuels to power our towns and cities and everything like that, we need to burn them. And burning fossil fuels means that we have a chemical reaction happening, and that's a combustion chemical reaction. So let's revisit the three types of fossil fuels that we find in the ground. The first one is coal. Coal is found in sedimentary rock, which is a type of rock that is basically made of layers of compacted soil and rock particles. So it's a very kind of soft rock. Now, oil is normally found in between layers of sedimentary rock, and sometimes it's found on top of water as well. Natural gas is a gas that is formed from oil, actually. So if there's a pocket, an air pocket above an oil well, there is going to be natural gas that forms inside that pocket. Now, natural gas can be found in other places as well, but that's the most common place that we find natural gas. Now, because fossil fuels are deep underground, we have to mine and extract them and refine them in order for us to be able to use them. And that can have pretty big effects on the environment. Now, let's talk about the process of mining. In the mining industry, there are two main types of mines that we have to extract not only fossil fuels, but other precious minerals and metals. The first one is called the open pit mine, and that is where you work from the surface of the earth and you dig your way down. You might have seen this kind of mine before if you've ever been to the quarry. The quarry is an example of an open pit mine that just happens to have filled up with water. Now, a lot of these open pit mines do end up filling with water after they've been used and finished. Now, the second kind of mining is the subsurface mining, and this is the stereotypical tunnel mining that you would see in like old movies and stuff like that. Subterranean or subsurface mining involves digging tunnels underneath the earth to extract your minerals and coal and other resources from the earth. So, as we know, mining has a pretty big impact on the environment. Number one, it destroys the natural environment that would exist there. So if there was a forest or a mountain or a swamp or something, in order to extract the minerals, you have to remove either a chunk of the mountain or the forest or the bog to be able to get underground. So it destroys habitats, which means that animals that live there would have to find other places to live, so they would have to move, or else, they would not exist anymore. Not only does it destroy habitats, but the process of mining also releases greenhouse gases. In order for us to dig deep into the earth, we use big, powerful machines that run on, you've guessed it, gas, which gives off carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, like we talked about last time. As we know, mining also disfigures the land. So we have all kinds of opportunities for erosion to happen, which can be detrimental to the mine itself, but it can also be detrimental to the quality of the land that is there. Now, it's not just the physical act of digging into the earth that affects the environment. Refining all of the minerals and the fossil fuels does affect the environment as well. Refining these things often means that we need to have a water source to help purify them, and this water often becomes contaminated. Now, you can't just release contaminated water into the environment, otherwise it will contaminate other water areas and other water sources, which is extremely detrimental for the people that live in that area. So oftentimes, they have to contain the water in an area, and they often call them tailing ponds. Now, these tailing ponds contain lots of contaminated water, and there is room for worry that if these tailing ponds were to leak into the surrounding area, the soil would become contaminated and other water sources would become contaminated. So there's a lot of controversy about refining and mining these materials. Not only can water become contaminated and soil become contaminated, but the air can also become contaminated. A lot of these refining processes release toxic gases into the atmosphere, which is not only bad for us to inhale, but it's also bad for the animals and plants that live in that region. Finally, I would like to talk about the effect of mining on society. Now, there's a reason why companies and people want to mine for fossil fuels and minerals and these kinds of natural resources. We've already talked about one of the reasons. We use fossil fuels to power our cities and homes and our cars, quite literally. We also mine to get precious metals and minerals so that we can make awesome technology like our smartphones, our tablets, our TVs, even our fridges. So there's a lot of benefit from extracting these minerals and these fossil fuels from the ground for us to use in our day-to-day society. However, there are lots of repercussions to these as well, like we've talked about already. Now, mining minerals and fossil fuels is good for society, but in certain cases, it can be harmful as well. Let's talk about that a little bit. Mining can be an incredibly dangerous job for the people who are working at these mines, especially in areas where safety isn't a priority. Now, if we were to take a mine in Canada, we have really high safety standards because we have a government that is able to implement these and dole out punishments to companies that don't adhere to these policies. However, if you go to a country that is in turmoil, in a war zone, or they're a very poor country and their government doesn't have a lot of power, this means that external companies can come in and take advantage of the people living there and not offer the same safety standards that they would in, let's say, US or Canada. Now, in regions that are torn by war and conflict, we often have gangs that come in and take over these mines of precious minerals and materials. They often take over because there is room to make money. And in an area that is torn by war and conflict, it's easy to take over these places. Oftentimes, what they would do is they would actually take local children and force them to work in the mines. Now, of course, safety standards are not a thing in these areas. The only thing that they care about is making money. So they will do anything that they can to make an extra buck or two. So these children are often taken from their families, and they're forced to work in these awful conditions. And of course, the mortality rate for these children is often pretty high. And these children often don't get paid for their services. It's basically like slave labor. So in summary, fossil fuels are substances that are carbon-based, that are found deep underground, and we have to be able to mine them and refine them in order for us to use to power our cities and homes. When humans burn fossil fuels, we release a bunch of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, which we know causes an enhanced greenhouse effect. Now, mining has a lot of positives for society in general, but it also has a lot of negatives. And it's important moving forward to try to take both sides and try to find a balance in between. It's very difficult, it's a very tough situation, but we need to make sure that we understand both sides of the problem in order to properly solve it. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.